Right, now this will tell us. And that's pretty conclusive. Still going. Close. I think he's got it down.
How strong is he?
Welcome back to the Pick and Go podcast, your one-stop shop for all things Super Rugby. And you'll notice that this week I'm not joined in studio by Piri Wipu. Unfortunately, he's unable to be here today. So, look, we've had to bring someone off the bench. And we might as well cross to that person right now. You may know him, Jeff Goldie Wilson. Jeff, welcome along to the Pick and Go. First of all, how are things going?
So a couple of things foreign to me, the pick and go, one in particular in the game of rugby union, never did one. And the other thing is coming off the bench. So that doesn't happen very often either. So in regards to what you might get today, you might get a little bit of an angry, the fact that you've come to me so late in the fold. But look, it's a privilege to come on. You guys are a wealth of knowledge, and I'm looking forward to having all the information I need for the weekend when I start doing the games, to be fair. So bring it on.
I thought we should get you on before the Highlanders are knocked out, so it's good to have you here.
Well, you've got a whole month. You've got a whole month then. You've got a whole month, mate. No problems. You watch us, and it won't be knocked out. It's called lifting a trophy. That's what it's called.
Well, good. We'll have a look at their outright odds later on in the podcast, and then maybe we'll just come back and just see how confident Jeff is in terms of the Highlanders' chances to lift the trophy at the end of the season. Once again, though, we're also joined up north by Ben Searle of Surly Talk Sports. Surly, welcome along again.
Yeah, cheers. Also unfamiliar with a pick and go and familiar with coming off the bench. So some similarities and some differences there with Jeff. But yeah, look, tough loss for the Blues. But hey, I'm backing them much like Jeff's backing the Landers. And I think I got a better crack than he does, but we'll see.
Right, last week, Surly, Takapuna, you took them on. How did things go?
Yeah, probably much to your disappointment, Paulie. We got the dub, mate, 38 points to 20. So the Les Pearce Shield, Northcote was the first ever holders of it, and it's come back home. I was skipper for the day as well. So fair to say I enjoyed a few beers with my new mate, Les Pearce. And yeah, we have our first defence this weekend up against Kumu and a court session after that. So looking forward to it.
Oh, so is that on the line every week you play, or...?
Every home game, yeah.
Every home game. Oh, so sort of like a Ranfurly Shield for, what is it, Club Rugby up there over the Harbour Bridge.
Yeah, so we've got Kumu and Massey before we get into finals time. Once it's in finals, it's no longer up for grabs, much like the Ranfurly.
Yeah, I like the way you said we've got Kumu and Massey. Obviously, very, very confident of holding it against Kumu before you get head on to Massey.
Oh, I've already looked ahead and I'm trying to plan if it's going to be there for Mad Monday after we win the comp. So I'm just trying to dot my T's and cross my I's, all that type of stuff, or cross your T's and dot your I's, whichever way you like to say it.
This is what we call in rugby terms of getting ahead of yourself. That's what we call this, is getting ahead of yourself. I think you should focus getting through not just this weekend's game, but the traditional court session afterwards.
Yeah.
Because that could severely affect your performance the following weekend. And I'm talking from experience that we might have on the odd time playing for Otago, celebrated a win, maybe just a little bit too much.
Doesn't sound like Otago, does it?
Yeah, no, certainly not. Crikey. Jeff, you've been shopping, bought yourself a pair of footy boots. So we're going to see you returning to the footy field in the not too distant future?
No. Look, this is a simple case. I've been recruited back in to do some coaching and helping out at Westlake Boys High School with their second 15. And I've been there 3 weeks. I've been here 3 weeks. And basically, I won't lie to you, I fell on my ass last week as I was running around on the grass. And I won't lie to you, didn't have a pair of rugby boots left in the house. I went dredging through all sorts of bags, and I haven't got one that I could find easily anyway. So it was out to the store, and it's like you say, having 16 and 17-year-olds laugh at you because you're on your ass is not fun. And so I'm either going to come in tomorrow full of confidence and beans after training this afternoon, or with a torn hamstring, or something seriously having gone wrong. But I tell you what, it's been fun to get back out there, and I've got a whistle back in my mouth, and the kids are great. So, any way I can help out at that with my boys' teams and in the game, go for it, Rob.
Well, question for you, Goldie. Should Razor be nervous?
About my coaching? No. If you look at my professional record as a coach, when I coached North Harbour and had a brief season with the Blues, I think I had the worst winning percentage of any professional rugby coach ever to don a tracksuit. So, as much as I take some responsibility for that, I think there's some players as well would look back at that experience and go, you know what? I'm glad he's now a commentator rather than an actual coach on the field. Brutal honesty. I know how exactly. Well, look, do I miss that side of it? A little bit. Don't get me wrong, but sometimes it's a little bit easier to have your. Let me put it this way: to have it in your own hands rather than relying on somebody else to go out there and perform. Right?
How many golf shoes did you find while you're looking for the rugby boots?
If I'd had some of the old cricket spikes, I might have used those. That would have shocked the boys because those are needles. They would have spiked right through. And now I've got boots. Maybe should I bring back rucking today? What do you reckon?
Definitely, especially Westlake. We're a tough bunch, us ex-Westlake students, but you got to put the current ones through the ringer, I reckon.
All right. Well, I definitely won't be tackling.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I think there's enough of this Westlake business right now. Let's get on to what we've been talking about over the last few weeks. And we're trying to help Razor out with his selections for the very first All Black test of the season, which is getting ever closer. And this week we're going to have a look at the wingers. How appropriate that we've got Goldie on the show when we decided to talk about wingers. I'll go to Surly first and just say, Razor, will he stick with? Is it a clean slate and he's going to stick and he's going to start from afresh, or does he look at the incumbents and go, well, you were there last time, you can have another go?
I like to think it's a bit of a clean slate, but to be fair, I think the guys who are going to wear the wing spots have all played for the All Blacks before. So I've been extremely impressed with Severis. I feel like I'm talking about him every week, but his comeback from a knee injury has been spectacular, and he's been a handful. And then on the other wing, I think Mark Talia wears that jersey too, and that gives us two outstanding strike weapons. Hot on their heels, guys like Caleb Clark, Amoni Narawa, and then a potential bolter in Etene Nanai-Satoro. So those are the kind of five that I've highlighted at the moment. But I think your starting wingers, if healthy, be hard to go past Severis and Mark Talia, and I think they would give us massive strike on both wings.
Jeff, are you sort of thinking along the same lines as Surly? Reece has certainly been very, very good in a Crusaders team that hasn't been able to pick up the number of wins that they would have liked, but he's been all over the park at times.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, with Will Jordan not being available for these early test matches, some chat about him maybe getting closer to fitness around the Rugby Championship, which is a long competition. So for the here and the now, when you start taking on England, you take on Fiji, you're 100% right, the guys you talked about who've shown the form throughout Super Rugby this year. But I'm actually thinking I'm really liking the Blues duo of Caleb Clark and Mark Talia. I as much as Severis has been great, I just think Caleb Clark has returned to that blockbusting form, but also added to his game in regards to some consistency around his defence. There's a lot of little things he's doing in the game now on a weekly basis. His kick chase, his tackle efficiency, the work he does on kickoffs is actually quite underrated in terms of chasing kickoffs and putting pressure on, getting guys on the deck. And what we are seeing from his decisiveness of ball in hand. So for me at the moment, and getting that balance of having a guy who's very, very good, Severis is as good, but Caleb Clark around the edge of rucks he's almost like he's a big, big man. He's, 107, 108 kicks, if not bigger, being able to shift. And I really like what he has brought this year and playing with a great deal of confidence. Amoni Narawa is the one for me, though. If I was to go the next cab off the rank, I think the ceiling for this young man is very, very high. We got a taste of it before that back injury ruled him out of last year's Rugby World Cup. He is lightning. He is absolute lightning, has a fantastic skill set. The thing we've got at the moment is we've got to work out what our fullback cover is going to be. That's one of our big issues with the All Blacks is who's going to be the guy that's going to cover fullback, because at the moment you'd have to say that Beauden Barrett probably has the inside running. Yes, Ruben Love's been good, but he's almost peaked a little bit. All of a sudden you start looking at the big matchups. Ruben Love through this week against the Highlanders and through the playoffs now has to go to another level because every game is meaningful. If he wants to play his way into a position to be the backup fullback for the All Blacks, and this is where this discussion around 10 and 15 impacts the wings. So I like what you're saying. The players you're talking about, Atini Nana-Satura, absolutely. See, one I really like is Josh Morby. I think he's been really good for the Hurricanes. He hasn't played a bad game all year when they've moved him to fullback, entirely comfortable playing that position. That was one of the benefits we had for a long time of having Ben Smith. He'd start at fullback. We want to make a change. He'd slot onto the wing. They'd move him onto the wing. At the moment, what we've got is we've got a lot of guys that are out and out wingers. And what we have seen, we've actually in big games, we've had to carry, say, Anton Leonard-Brown to cover the wing. Will we consider Geordie Barrett as our cover for fullback? There's a lot of long conversations that need to be had to get the balance right. But an out-and-out form for me, I think Clark and Talia, complement each other really well.
Seeing as Jeff has brought the fullback position into play here, Surly, do you agree with him in terms of Barrett being probably the number one selection at fullback for Scotty Robertson? Or can you make a case for someone else, possibly?
Well, if Will Jordan's fit, he gets it hands down. But like Jeff said, he's not available until later on. So I guess it's between Beauden, Ruben Love and Sean Stevenson. And the latter of the two probably haven't been as strong as they would have liked to have been and were at the start of the competition. Whereas Bodie, you just know what you're going to get. He's so experienced. He's another game driver. He can lessen the load off whoever's playing at 10 in DMAC. They have an established combination already, and they can rotate throughout the game as well. So it certainly opens up our attacking structure. Obviously, Shooter's a friend of mine, so I'd like to see him in the mix. And I think Ruben Love is every bit an All Black for the next 10 or so years. So we have great options there. It's just no one's really putting their hand up over the top of others and saying, this is my jersey, and then everyone else fill in behind. So it is going to be an interesting one because there's probably three different options.
Jeff, no concerns about Bodie coming back from Japanese rugby, and then I'm just thinking, is there a difference in intensity when it comes to Japanese rugby and then coming back to All Black Test match rugby?
Yeah, you're right. That's a legitimate concern. Probably in the past, I don't think as much of a concern now. These guys are really professional. They really do understand. We watch guys not play for 5, 6, 7 weeks and then come back in and play, and it's like they've never missed a beat. The intensities that they can put themselves through at training. Look, I think his experience, he knows exactly what will be expected of him. He has had a couple of niggles through the season in Japan, but I just look at his body of work last year for the All Blacks. It was really strong. And it wasn't game-breaking Beauden Barrett. It was a player who was in control of his position and his complementary play with Richie Mo'unga, which I think is going to work well with Damian McKenzie. I think those game understandings, I'm really confident he'd come back and play. And I think for me, there's a level of security, given the fact we know what we're going to get from England, and I'm just hopeful that they're going to bring out their strongest squad, because I think the days of having to protect players and all that sort of carry on, we saw what it did for Irish rugby coming down here and playing the All Blacks at full strength and giving it everything you got. And this is where it's great. And a challenge for Razor, though, because he doesn't have the benefit of time. He'll have probably a week and a half with a group of players to go out and play international rugby. And so Sean Stevenson, I think, he's in a really difficult spot because he's been criticised probably a couple of seasons ago, not quite physical enough on defence. He worked really hard on that, showed some really good signs, did some really good things last year, and he's been good at it again. It's hard to shake that, though. Once again, I come back to this is the big month for all these guys. I think the slate is not clean. Some guys are incumbents. They've got the inside running. But for him and Ruben Love, this is the time you put up your hand and go, you know what? are there 2 or 3 plays that you can show that you are a different player, that you are at a test match level, that you are ready for England when a barrage of high balls come and forwards and front run midfielders are coming through and they're smoking you with ball in hand, because that's what you'll have to expect. You can't make mistakes in the backfield at international rugby. That kills you as a team. So, I think that's where those guys, that's where I think Bowden had got to, where the level of trust was high. At the moment, it's up to these guys. And that's why what Stephen Pettifetta does as well over the next month means, does he come back into the conversation? This is about trust for Razor. And, the one benefit he does have as well, remembering Jason Ryan's been there. So he's seen it all firsthand. He'll be going, this is the role this guy can play. But I'm excited for it, because all of a sudden we probably throw up 10 names, in competing for an All Black jersey. But if there's one name for me, it's Amoni Narawa. He's a guy who can play fullback, who's got some versatility. And I think he's lightning in a bottle, and we need to see it get an opportunity at some point. Whether or not it's in the first couple of tests, I'm not sure.
Right. So for Jeff, we've got Ronnie Clark and
so Ronnie
Mark
Clark
Talia.
coming back. I tell you what, Ronnie's looking good right now. It's Caleb. Let's go with Caleb.
I've done it again.
No disrespect,
Paulie, you're a shocker.
No disrespect to it, Ronnie. All right, and I've played Ronnie a lot. I'd prefer Caleb right now. Okay.
Oh, jeez. Oh, gee. Those were some halcyon days, to be fair. Caleb Clark. And I was about to say Alex Talia as well. But,
Oh, yeah.
Mark
I've played with Alex. Yep, yeah, you've got it, yeah.
yeah. I'm stuck in another decade. Sorry, boys. So, yeah, Caleb Clark and Mark Talia with Barrett in the 15.
It's very blues heavy. It's very blues heavy.
That is very blues heavy.
But form sport.
Yeah. I just wonder if Razor has to change his mind when the Blues get knocked out first round of the playoffs. Anyway, we'll look at that. Still a week away. And Surly, he was keen on Sevu Reece and Mark Talia. And I'm guessing with Bodie in the number 15 jersey as well. So looks like we're all fairly close in helping Razor out with the back three. I just get the feeling that if he picks someone like a Josh Morby, then that probably means that someone like a Ruben Love moves a wee bit further down the pit, and it might have to wait another season or half a season or so before he gets his opportunity. Right. One other question. As we approach the playoffs, and of course, we've only got one more week of the regular season, one more round, and then we're into it. Which team, and every team is still a chance, well, there are 7 teams that have cemented their spot in the playoffs, and then there are another 4 who are still mathematically able to make it. The only team that can't make it are the Waratahs. So which team would you least like to face in the first round of the playoffs? I'll throw it to you, Sealy.
Yeah, if I was a Kiwi side at the moment, I'm wanting to avoid a trip to Canberra. So I'm hoping that the Blues and the Hurricanes can both win this weekend, because I think the Brumbies are playing some good footy. They've got a good mix of a hard-working forward pack and some exciting outside backs. And then a Noah Lolosio, they have a good 10 and game driver too. And they're just so hard to beat at home. So I'm hoping that the Blues and the Canes get the win, so that no Kiwi side has to go over there and play a semi-final, because I think that is a really tough trip.
Jeff, which team would you like to avoid?
The Crusaders. I honestly, and it might be a nice thing to finish second, if you're the top team, if the Crusaders manage to find a way. They need, obviously, the Ndrua to lose to the Rebels. That's the key result for them, and then they've got to get the points they require, which is necessary. It's just one win. It's a win over Moana Pacifica on Friday night. Good thing is they'll set a marker, but you don't want the Crusaders, because the 2 teams they've beaten the Blues and Chiefs at home. Now, yes, they've been at home, but the way they went about their business, they're 1 play away from beating the Hurricanes in Christchurch. So they're still this is early on in the season. And look, it's been a disaster in some ways for them, clearly, this year. But you can just see what they did to the Blues, what they've done they did to the Chiefs, and they'll have to do it away from home, but they should have had a chance to beat the Brumbies. That was an absolute brain explosion from Quinton Strange, which didn't give them the chance to go on and win that game. So if you start talking about, look, they beat the Blues, they were one player away from beating the Hurricanes. They should have been in the competition to beat the Brumbies away, and then they beat the Chiefs. They're the top 4 teams in the competition. The fact they lost to some of these other sides is ridiculous. But ultimately, I'm telling you, if you finished one and the Crusaders sneak in, you're going, what have I done to deserve this? You know, because you've done all that hard work, and then you'll come up against a side which may have some guys. What if you put Scott Barrett back into that team that was playing on the weekend? Look out. I'm just look out, you know, because all of a sudden that forward pack's world class, and it's going to put you under all sorts of pressure. So that's how I'm thinking. If you're, you know, I think that whoever's finished in one, say if, you know, they'll be looking or considering what's happening and going, if the Crusaders are in, you're going, do I really want to finish one now? If the Crusaders are the team I have to beat?
It's almost a poison chalice, Searley, if the Crusaders were to sneak into the playoffs. And, of course, for that to happen, they'd have to take care of Moana Pacifica first, which, the bookies have got them very, very short. So you'd think they'd be able to pick up a win there and a bonus point, which could be very, very crucial in the end, because, first of all, they need the Drua to lose. And if only this game was in Melbourne, you'd be saying, well, that is a likely prospect. But as we know in Suva, the Drua are just a different team. They're a different proposition. They there's home field advantage, but this is home island advantage. If there's a fortress, it's Fortress Suva, Fortress Lautoka. So if the Rebels were to trip up the Drua, the Crusaders are a big chance. They could sneak in there, which means that finishing top of the comp at the end of the regular season becomes not an advantage. It becomes it's almost like you're playing a grand final in week 1 of the playoffs.
Yeah, and even if you do beat them, they'll bash you. There'll be some sore bodies coming out of that game, because the Crusaders side in finals time certainly isn't going to roll over. And the Blues saw it on the weekend. Now that they've got a pretty strong squad back, they've got their depth. That's still a quality side with a lot of All Blacks and international players in there. So definitely, if the draw can slip up, then the Crusaders will be a bit of a nightmare. I'm just backing Fiji to be too strong at home and kind of end the hopes, because I do think the Crusaders will put out a massive performance against Moana, and it could get a bit ugly for them, unfortunately.
Of course, the Crusaders, even if they were to win, would need to rely on the Western Force to not do the same as the Crusaders. So if the Western Force win, then the Crusaders have to hope they win without a bonus point, because they've won more games, which is the deciding factor in terms of a tiebreaker. It's not the points differential where the Crusaders have a far superior for and against than with Western Force. So there's a couple of hurdles that need to fall over for the Crusaders to make it, but it's not like this is a Hail Mary. And the bookies, and if we have a look at the outright market, the bookies have got them fairly short. I think they're around the $20 mark to actually win Super Rugby. Yeah, $26, the Crusaders, and I think they were around between $50 and $80 last week before they beat the Blues. So it's been a big move, and the bookies have been reluctant to push the Crusaders out all season. I mean, I can tell you there's a liability on the Crusaders just because of the prices that they did get out to, and then their odds that we haven't been accustomed to seeing in regards to the Crusaders, Goldie.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think everyone recognises the threats that they do have, and so. There's a lot of things that the players that were missing for a long period of time. Tamaiti Williams, Ethan Blackadder, Scott Barrett's been out significant amount of time. Cody Taylor didn't start until 5 weeks ago. 4 or 5 weeks ago. So all of these things where you just sort of knew if they were able to hang around at this time of the year, they were going to be better just because of health. They've just left their run too late. Probably. And the interesting one about the Brumbies though is the fact that they're waiting for someone else to slip up, right? They're waiting for the Blues and Hurricanes to slip up, The Blues lose to the Chiefs, then the Brumbies could jump ahead of them. and if they get the job done against the Force. So there's a lot to play out in that top three. They could all finish 1, 2, or 3. So that's what I love about this weekend. Like a lot of talk about. Yes, I know 8 teams out of 12 seems like a lot. Yep, right. But if we were at this situation about the top 4 2 weeks ago, well, the last 3 rounds are, well, there's only 4 teams in contention. We're right now, there are going to be 8 teams, and the Chiefs have actually probably sitting there going, they know they've got the Reds, right? They know what they've got. So they know what their first game's going to be. Reds have been a bit of a challenge for them from time to time, which makes it really, really interesting. So yeah, I was on the Crusaders. I actually thought they'd win the competition again. I also said they were at the start of the season. Before it even started, I said I looked at what they had, and then they had these number of guys that got injured, and we were waiting for it to happen. It could happen. And that's why I think TAB's been very, very smart and going, you know what? Let's just not get silly here, because at some point they might make a run. I think our odds at Sky, given the all of the information we've had, got them at about an 18% chance of making the playoffs, right? 18%. That's still close enough for them. So I think they'll beat Moana Pacifica on Friday and do it well, and just go, you know what? I dare someone to give us an opportunity, because you will not want to play us.
Oh, well, you said, did you just say us then?
Yeah, because I'm the South Islander. Because I picked them.
Oh.
So here's the thing.
Yeah,
I've made this quite clear right from the start because I've said us because I've picked them to win the competition. Because I picked them, they're part of us. But trust me, when it becomes Highlanders time, my one eye comes out. Is the fact that I'm all well and truly on what the Highlanders have done this year has been actually pretty good. To make the playoffs, to be right there. If we manage to beat the Hurricanes this weekend, confidence, you just never know. There's enough there. You wouldn't. I don't know if you want to play the Highlanders either. If the Highlanders would rate themselves a chance in Canberra. If they held on to 6th and we're going to play in Canberra, they'd rate themselves a chance.
It's really funny because the Highlanders have secured their playoff spot, and yet they're $67 to win Super Rugby, whereas the Crusaders, who haven't secured a spot and need to rely on other results going their way for them to actually make the playoffs, are $26. So the bookie's really keen to sell a wee bit of the Highlanders to punters out there who might want a little nibble before the playoffs start in just over a week's time. You just brought up something there, actually, Goldie, and I want to throw another question back at you, because you said us and you said the South Island. Should we bring back the North v South game and try and turn it into a sort of a state of origin type affair, with players, I guess, qualifying for North or South because of the team that they played for first when they turned 18 or 16?
When they turned 16, or the first provincial team they played for was because in the old days, right, everyone just played for their local team first and foremost, their provincial side, right? So that was whereas now what we see are kids move around the country, they go into academies and then they get an opportunity with, they might not be born and bred. I like the born and bred thing, I think that's, I think it was a first senior game, I think was something that was mooted. Look, when we played the North-South game when that dreaded COVID was around, it was exciting to watch. It was something a little bit different. It was a last-minute try. Look, we love our tribalism, some traditional fixtures. We'd love to see those. I see the announcement that, those tours between South Africa and New Zealand and the All Blacks are returning again. They're looking at those. So little things like that. And I think the North-South is one of those. Unfortunately, there's just only so many weekends in the year. I'd love there to be an All Black trial. Let's be honest. If you were to put the best, 46 players against each other, and ask them to go out there and just, let's go up a level again. So, play Super Rugby, but let's go up another level. And we saw that when the North and South teams were named. You went, well, this is quite exciting. This is just below, if not close to international rugby. Let's be honest, our second 23, which is our New Zealand A team, would pretty much beat anyone ranked probably over 12 in the world pretty comfortably. They would go pretty well at that, not being arrogant about it, but that's just the talent level we seem to have, right? So you start talking about a North-South game, you're elevating. And imagine if there was well, this is your chance to play your way in, force a conversation about whether or not you should get a chance at the next level. We'd all love that. And I tell you what, we'd all turn up to watch it, because you're exposing the fans to all of the best players in New Zealand in one place at one time, other than a test match.
Just brought up another point, Searley, but I want to get your thoughts on whether you think a North v South state of origin type series or one-off, whether the New Zealand public would have the appetite for it. But he also brought up another thing, touring teams and them actually having a proper tour of New Zealand like they used to do, like the Springboks used to do, and they gave the provincial sides the opportunity to, if they won, get the Springbok trophy to hang up in the club. Yes, Jeff, yes.
Almost drowned that day. Almost drowned. Garrisburg was underwater. Honestly, we played with it 6 inches of water. They didn't want a bar of us. Southerly had come overnight and it rained for about 24 hours straight. So I'd say it was I was early on in my career as 94 when they toured, right? And it was amazing. Like to the Springbok here for us to go to I think it was in the Neville Street stand underneath Neville Street stand was the presentation it was fantastic. The Springboks were awesome about it. But that was, one of my proudest moments as a player. It was, it was winning that with a provincial team. It was fantastic.
And it gives the touring team an opportunity to blood a few more players, get a few more, find out exactly are they up to the mark. I remember one of the few days I was allowed to WAG school, head up to Athletic Park to see Wellington take on, I think it was the Lions used to do that as well. They used to tour and have a proper tour, which is just gone by the wayside now. But yeah, I'd like to see that come back. But yes, it's early. State of origin, North v South.
Yeah, I'm all for it, for sure. It definitely comes down to the criteria around who you play for, and they need a clear announcement around that. I also would like to see a probables versus possibles, because I think those were amazing games. Like, you named in the possibles, you automatically got a massive chip on your shoulder. You go out there and you want to show that you should be in the probables, but at the same time, it probably causes Razor and Co more headaches than they need, because all of a sudden someone in the possibles plays outstanding, and now you've got to factor them into that as well. So I think Jeff touched on it, though. It's the calendar, it's the workload, it's how many games these guys have to play. Like, I'd like to see a All Blacks, Wallabies, Anzac Day game as well, but you can't fit that in. There's so much we could do at the moment. I think this Club World Cup is going to be really exciting as well. So, yeah, the more footy, the better as a fan. But I think if you ask the players, it's about striking that balance.
Jeff, were you a possible or a probable?
I played in a All Black trial in '94 opposite Sir John Kerwin, whose jersey I'd taken at the end of '93. So he was very unkindly in that game. Wasn't very nice. Didn't treat me with any deal of respect whatsoever at Hawke's Bay. Absolutely. We played a game before the '95 Rugby World Cup up at Whangarei those are the days where she would shower up to the after match, and the All Black side to play so-and-so is, you found out there on the day. Yeah, that was it. So you put your number ones on, you went up there, and trust me, when it's announced in alphabetical order, being a Wilson's not a good thing. So you're counting the squad numbers. You're getting to the point. I'm running out of numbers here. At the S's, or the S's, they've only got 2 spots left. I mean, and you start running through your names. So those, that in itself was unique. The air of tension around that. So I was lucky. I mean, I played in both sides. I was in a probable side for the World Cup, and that was a stacked team, and we absolutely smoked the other side. I felt sorry for them at the day, because it really wasn't fair. It wasn't. We were just that much better. It was basically the top side that went on to the '95 World Cup, played against the rest, and it really was a bath. But the other game was in '94. We'd lost the last test against England in '93, and so Laurie had decided he wanted some changes and something a little bit different. And so I was part of the squad, but I didn't end up being in the starting team. I ended up being on the bench. Jonah came into the fold for the couple of test matches against France. And then we went on to play South Africa, and basically JK. And unfortunately, I really wish JK had played well enough to last one more game in 94, because that wonderful occasion at Sydney Football Stadium I wouldn't have to deal with for the rest of my life, involving a halfback.
George Gregan?
Will remain unnamed. I was going to say, thank you very much.
Paulie, you ruined it.
You're just cutting out. I'm just about to push. I'm just about to hang up. So anyway, I've been through it before, and it is there's this air of tension around it, possibles, probables, but definitely I've been on both sides. Absolutely.
Crikey, we're heading off on all tangents here. This isn't part of the script, but you mentioned 94. You mentioned 95, and it'd be remiss of me if I didn't ask, how crook were you?
I could do with a good sickness right now. A little bit of weight loss would go down brilliantly. I dropped a few kegs in about 48 hours. I was pretty crook. Look, it's been well documented. Between I think Thursday lunchtime, which we got sick from, and I played on the Saturday afternoon, I think I'd been able to hold down a bowl of soup and a bread roll. I'd been out of my hotel room once, and that was on the Saturday morning because they'd sort of quarantined everyone. I mean, not only was it that, unbelievably, for that sort of 48 hours or the 24 hours of quarantine, they put me with Richard Lowe. Now, that's not easy either. I mean, if they wanted me to recover, that wasn't the way to do it. Making me spend more time with Lowe than I really genuinely needed to. I never spent any time near him at training, let alone have to share a room with him. So in terms of a recovery plan, but I was pretty bad. We're touching on all my wonderful moments here. I really appreciate it. The ulterior motive, I'm just looking at my script that you sent through to me. It had nothing to do with 94 or 95 or any of this rubbish. And here we are. Can we get back to the here and the now?
Right. I know what you're thinking, Surly. Harden up, crikey. If Michael Jordan could do it with the flu, then surely you boys could do it with a little bit of a sore tummy.
Yeah, I was actually more thinking that Jeff's going to release your highlights from earlier today of you trying to organise this for an hour just to get revenge, Paulie. So you better be careful with all the bad moments you're bringing up here, mate.
Software updates, you just can't trust them. There they go.
Software updates.
Right, let's have a very quick look at what happened last week, and we'll focus on the big two derbies, the Chiefs, Hurricanes. A tight win for the Canes there in the end. They got out to a bit of a lead. Their forward pack looked very, very good. Of course, they were down to 13 men at one stage, and then there was a yellow card that was turned into a red card. Crikey, Jeff. First of all, I guess your overall sort of synopsis of what happened in that game.
I think just a really good indicator there's not much between these teams. There's not much between the Blues, the Chiefs, and the Hurricanes, and you have to respect what the Brumbies have done in the course of the season. There's a clear top four teams, and this is going to come down when it's the playoffs, when it's a game like this. It'll be the same between the Blues and Chiefs this week, I imagine. It could come down to one or two plays. I hope we get a different type of ending than we got at Hamilton. I was disappointed with the finish of that game, given the fact that I think Paul Williams, the referee, had an opportunity to use an unplayable law. So given the fact that Jacobson had made such a dominant tackle, I think through the course of this competition, you've heard referees constantly talk about you're pinning him in there, you can't pin him in there. That's something that they talked about. Unfortunately, I felt we didn't get the finish we might have deserved. It ended up being a little bit weak. But Brett Cameron slotted and took the points. I know the Hurricanes, I'll tell you this, is they felt the Chiefs were cheating all night at the breakdown, and they told me after the game, so they didn't care about how they won in the end, and you don't care. The Hurricanes have gone to Hamilton and beaten a team that's a contender, and so they now control a little bit of their destiny. They want to keep the pressure on the Blues by getting a good result against the Highlanders. So I thought the Hurricanes were good, but look, these are two contenders to win the title this year.
Surly, your take on that game? Obviously, you're close to a number of players in the Chiefs, so were they? I guess you wouldn't be unhappy if you were the Chiefs because, as Jeff said, it showed that both of these teams are worthy of playing in the grand final.
Yeah, both are. And like Jeff touched on it, it's going to come down to moments in these big games. And unfortunately, that moment at the end of the game was a bit disappointing. Like, that was a massive shot from Jacobson. The thing which frustrated me the most was Paul Williams then went up to him and said, you just need to show some effort. Like, you could see Jacobson's legs going in all sorts of directions. He was doing everything he could to get out of that. So that put a real sour note on what was a great game, because outside of that, I thought the Canes dominated that first 40 despite being down in numbers. The Chiefs scored straight after halftime, like good teams do, to get themselves back into the clash. And then that second half, it was all go. Some great moments, some great individual displays. To then have it finish on that note left a little sour taste in the mouth. But these are two quality sides that we're going to see play again at some stage in the competition, I believe.
Right. Don't worry, Paul Williams, you got it spot on. Big guy. The other game we'll have a look at, Crusaders Blues, and wow, another fantastic matchup here. And you mentioned the Chiefs, Canes, Blues, and Brumbies, Jeff, worthy of playing in the grand final, or all capable of winning a grand final. The Crusaders showed last weekend that they're capable. If they can make it, they're capable of knocking over any team that they face. So from that game, were there any concerns, I guess, from a Blues point of view for you?
You'll be a little concerned about your scrum, just a little bit. I think it was enough. But we've seen the Crusaders, and you're talking about All Black front row. I mean, that's what they had. Newell, Taylor, Tamati Williams, Joe Moody, George Bauer. I mean, that's what they had at their disposal. And I think they used it really well to put pressure on. So there's one concern for the Blues. The one thing I did think they were missing significantly is the guy that we've talked about maybe being an All Black, and Caleb Clark, but also Dalton Papali'i. I think that his physicality, he's put on 4 or 5 kicks since last year's Rugby World Cup. He came home, had a chat to him, and I said, mate, you're looking a bit bigger. And funnily enough, he doesn't look as ripped, but he's actually carrying more size. And he said he's actually been getting used to using that size. And if you've watched him this year, his ability to hit and stick and to stop momentum of the opposition, his threat at the breakdown's been stronger. They missed that, I believe. Chote's a good player, but he's not Dalton Papali'i. And the balance of those loose forwards had been working so well together. That would be one area where I think they'll get a lift when they get, as long as everyone's fit and available. I think that would have been a help because Blackadder did a really good job in his first full game back of being a threat and a menace. And I think Papali'i might have had something to say about that or do about that during the course of the game. So for the Blues, they didn't. This is the danger of this competition, is the Blues have pretty much been able to bully, and we saw what they did to the Highlanders, and that was their B team at Eden Park. They've pretty much been able to bully 8 of these teams. They've just gone out and overpowered them. You can't overpower the Crusaders. You can't overpower, the Chiefs. I don't believe. Mind you, in saying that, the Chiefs scrum's still got some work to do. Hurricane scrum when Lomax comes back. Just an update on him. I'll give you. It looks as though he probably could have played on the weekend, but he came right a little bit late in the week. So it looks as though he's going to be back this week to take on the Highlanders, and he makes their scrum significantly better. So I look at that and go, you know what? If you're the Blues, you want to shore yourself up front. Make sure that your scrum against the contenders, against the big guns. The Brumbies are one of those teams as well. Their forward pack's been pretty good. That's the area you'll go, well, you can't play bully ball against the top teams. That doesn't work. They'll front up. If you keep running at them, Crusaders boys, the Chiefs boys, they'll keep tackling. They'll keep smacking you back. The Hurricanes, we know what they'll do in that part of the game as well.
Surely, your Blues, they were never out of the game, right? And they had an opportunity to send it, tie it all up with time almost up on the clock. Didn't quite happen, but you wouldn't be too unhappy with the Blues?
No, I think one thing I noticed as well, the impact of the Crusaders bench outweighed the impact of the Blues bench. But once you chuck back in a Caleb Clark, a Dalton, a Bryce Heem, then all of a sudden you've got Choate, you've got Lamb, guys like that, quality coming off the bench, so you can match a bit more of that firepower. Because I thought Tamaiti Williams and Hannah in particular had a massive impact for the Chiefs off the remove there. So I think the Blues at full strength, there's certainly nothing to panic about there. We still saw some amazing displays of skill, like that Hoskins to Tutu cutout pass. Awesome. Again, showing how he used to be a first five. He wouldn't look out of place on the touch field, showing his skill set. One thing I did want to ask, that Stephen Perofeta yellow card, do you think that's a rule that rugby needs to address now? Because it's starting to get, it costs you games, and we see it in league. You're allowed to slap it down intentionally. Are we happy with how it is at the moment? Is there a debate there? I'll be interested to hear what Jeff had to say.
No, they got that wrong for me. He tried to catch the ball. Like, you look at his hands. His hands are pointed to the sky. He's literally jumped up, tried to catch it, and just the weight of the pass has gone through and it's gone forward. This is so different to a guy sticking his hand out with no chance of catching it, and I think they've got that wrong, and it hurt. I mean, it was. I think both teams scored a try in that situation, but once again, you talk about moments and decisions. You'd hate to think that that's going to have an impact on who wins this title. And I think that's just what we experienced last year. And we have full respect for South Africa. Before they get on me, before I even say it out loud, that's what they do. Right? We have full respect for the way that they play. But ultimately, the game was affected by a critical decision. And we've been really lucky this year. We haven't been talking about the referees, haven't talked about the TMO very much at all through this competition. I've done a great job of avoiding these big moments. When the pressure comes on, those are going to be critical in terms of the game. The question I come back to you with about the Perofeta thing is, what do you do if he's fit and available now in terms of your backline structure and you're going, yep, we don't have Zahn Sullivan. We haven't got another option at fullback realistically, or is Plummer, who's done a great job at 10, is he going to be the guy that's going to lead the Blues to a title at first five? Is Plummer the guy for you, Surly?
I'm not too sure. I said last week that to me, Plummer's always been a bit of a jack of all trades, master of none, but his form over the last 6 weeks has been exceptional for the Blues. So he was filling me with confidence, but I guess now is where we're going to really see if he can pull the strings in a championship winning side, because deep down in my heart, I would probably still trust Perofeta more in the 10 jersey, because I think he is a great game driver and his kicking game really is elite. But I think at the moment, having Plummer and Perofeta in the 10-15 is the best option for us. And I think, again, having a Bryce Heem, chucking him back into the mixer, he's such an underrated footballer for me that I think Plummer, Heem, and Rico have established a really nice combination there. So I think you're better just with minutes in the saddle to stick to that at this stage. But it is interesting, right? When you look at the 10s running these teams at the moment, you could argue that Plummer's probably the one that has the most to prove over the next few weeks.
Name a Super Rugby side that's won a competition without a world-class first five. Like if you were going to, even when South Africa were involved, even and we saw the peak powers of Quade Cooper. He had his couple of years in the sun with the Reds when they won their title. Foley with the Waratahs, like he was playing international rugby, Bernard Foley, and he drove them to a title. You think about the Bulls team and Mornay Stain, world class at doing what he did in the way that he played. Obviously, we've had Richie Moe do it for how many years in a row. Yeah. Probably the one guy who's probably done it, and he didn't. He was not quite world class, but Lima Sopawanga when he did it for the Highlanders. That he had a season. He had his season. Yeah. That's not, when you think about Damien McKenzie, compared to Brett Cameron and Harry Plummer, you go, there's a bit of a gap there, and in terms of winning a comp. And this to me that's where one of the big challenges happens. You've got to be really good, when the big moments come along, the guy that's got number 1 and 0 on his back is generally the guy that'll win you a game.
Yep, I look forward to Cameron stepping up big time in the playoffs this year. Very, very much so. I'd just like to mention also that I think the very first time that anyone's ever mentioned the officials on the Pick and Go podcast was about 5-10 minutes ago when Jeff Wilson called out Paul Williams.
Hold on, whoa. Hold on. I've given them credit. I'm saying that one decision. I'm saying he is a very good referee. Paul is a very good referee, and I just think it was one time. I would be surprised in that same scenario going forward, if we didn't see a different decision being made. I would be surprised if they haven't talked about that and gone, because if let's be honest, if we'd had an unplayable there, gone to a scrum, no one would have complained. No one would have complained. I don't think there would have been an issue, if the Hurricanes had got on to lose. There might have been he didn't do that. But I just think for me, that's one circumstance. And I'm not complaining about the officials. We haven't complained. And Gardner's been fantastic. Ben O'Keefe, done a fantastic job this year. There's just one instance where I would have liked a different way to finish what was a really good game.
To his credit too, I think he probably lost a bunch of brain cells after that collision with Etienne Toro too. So maybe delayed concussion. He was a bit rattled, all sorts.
No. He had a good game. I'm just saying one decision.
Agreed.
If you want to join a podcast where we bag the officials, join us on the NRL podcast, Goldie, because we do it every single week.
The Warriors won. So there's no bagging anyone this week. Mate, we're not bagging
exactly. Right, let's look ahead to the final round of the regular season for Super Rugby, and it all kicks off with the Crusaders taking on Moana Pacifica. The bookies have the Crusaders at $1.02, Moana Pacifica at $11. Crusaders are 26.5-point favourites, and the game total set at 57.5. Surly, well, I don't think there's too many punters out there who'll be tipping out Moana Pacifica. I guess maybe the one question is, do the Crusaders win with the bonus point?
Yes, I think they do. If this game was the last game of the round and the season was done and dusted, then you could excuse them for not having so much to play for and perhaps mentally not being all there. But the fact it's the first game of the round and they've still got a final spot on the line, stacked at home with world-class players, I think they win and they win well here, unfortunately for Moana.
Jeff, I'm guessing that your Crusaders, that it's a win. It's a big win as well. And so they do their part.
Yeah, they'll do their part. But what you have to acknowledge is Moana have been better in 2024. They've had some games where they haven't been better, but across the board, I think you would say they've made a step forward. What they do from the future from here, I find it difficult to believe they're going to find a way into the playoffs. I don't think they're going to win this game. I think the Crusaders are going to go for them up front, and all of a sudden the scrum and set phase is going to create pressure, create points, and then Moana are going to be chasing the game, and that's, you just don't do that against the Crusaders. But I give them full respect on their 4 wins of the year. It's a step up from last year. Where they go to from here, how they can attract, because I think a lot of these players have been around for a while now and maybe have reached their ceiling in some ways. They need to add a little bit to it. I'm not sure, how much better they can get. But what I would say is that the coaching staff should be happy, given the fact they haven't had really a home ground. They've just sort of kept scrapping away. They've beaten the teams that they should beat. They've done that well. So I go from no chance of beating the Crusaders, but they should hold their heads high, and the Crusaders will go about going, you know what? Let's get our 5 points. Let's do it well, and start with it up front, and go. It's up to everybody else now. We'll see what Monday holds for us if we get one more. But Crusaders will win this comfortably.
You bring up another good point, Jeff. I know we're getting off topic again. Should Moana Pacifica have all their home games in Tonga and Samoa?
It's costly. I'm not going to lie to you. It's incredibly costly. I think there is some talk about maybe being able to piggyback a couple of games, so give them a few in the islands. But the process and the amount of money it actually to move what you need, the minimum you need to go and deliver what we see, and we know the fan bases are there, but they're still not in a position to be large crowds with huge yields to cover costs. And so we're in as we've seen with so many other organisations in the television market and the production market right now, it's hard, And so I know Super Rugby would love to have more games in the islands, but the economics of it are really, really difficult. And so they need to find a base and home, wherever it might be in New Zealand or whatever that might be for now. I think a lot of this at the moment is a year-by-year proposition. remembering there's a lot of negotiations going on behind the scenes around what happens to the broadcast deals going forward, So what's Super Rugby going to look like next year anyway? Our understanding is the Rebels are gone, right? They're not going to be part of it. So down to 11 teams, what does that mean for everybody? So I think there's a lot of things up in the air, but to your point, we would love to see it. They need a base in New Zealand first and foremost. So if they're not playing a game in the islands, they're playing in one spot. And so if you want to go and travel and watch them, then there's their ground. But, unfortunately, that's costly, and where it might be. I don't know where that is. Look, I've moved to Whangarei, Northland Rugby is doing really well up there at the moment. Been really well run, really well organised. Club rugby's going really well. When we've played games up there this year, Blues went there, Moana have been there, Drua went up there. I can go on for hours. But all of a sudden, they love their rugby up there. If you give them a team to go and watch every week or every other week, what might it do for them? And a really cool stadium, which is the right size. Like, it's a cool stadium. So I'd like to think that they'll ignore me, because that's what they normally do. These poor people from the Super Rugby Commission, and they forever there's an email going, "What do you think about this? What do you think about that?" And then it's radio silence, which is fair enough. Like I say, I'm all I'm doing is trying to find a way to have the best competition we can have.
Right, let's move on to another game, because we are going way over time again. I don't know what's happened this week. Hurricanes, Highlanders. Hurricanes, $1.09. Highlanders, $6.50. The Hurricanes are 17.5-point favourites. The game total set at 56.5. Let's stick with you, Jeff, because it's your Highlanders. Surely that plus 17.5 has tweaked your interest to a certain extent.
It certainly has, knowing the fact that I've got a $100 virtual bet just sort of floating around, but it certainly piqued my interest around Jonah and Ricky really added something to their attack. So one thing the Highlanders have been lacking a bit of punch and been lacking a threat with ball in hand. And we saw what he was able to do against the Fijian Drua. First came back for a long time. It just added something for them. AJ Faleafunga did a fantastic job at first five. So there's a lot of pieces to the puzzle. If they play well, like a Falau Fakatava, it seems to click and they're a bigger threat. But the trouble is, all those games have been against not the top sides. They've been against the other sides. All the games that to them, this has actually turned out to be a really, pretty good season. You look at their season to date and you go, they're really young and experienced. They've fought their way into position, and the win over the Crusaders, in Dunedin was a huge moment for their year, huge moment for the organisation. So it's put them comfortably to back it up with a good, strong performance against the Drua, and they look sharp. It does pique my interest around the 17.5. Weather forecasts are always a big thing in Wellington, and whether it's wet and windy. So for me, I think the return of Billy Harmon, the Hurricanes would have to have an off night. And everything tells us that they're a better side, right? Everything up until this tells us a better side. But if they're slightly off and the Highlanders are building on their momentum, then there's a possibility. I think they could definitely cover. To upset them, I think, would be a big ask. But I'm giving them a small chance of doing that if the Hurricanes relax for a moment. Because there's just a different feeling but I don't know who the Highlanders are going to pick. That's a big one for me. I'm looking forward to seeing the team come out, because if Miller's fit again, do they put him back in? Because he looked really good for those couple of games, good against the Crusaders. It's exciting for them, because I think if you ask them at the start of the season with a round to go, you're 6 on the table, they'd say yes, please. Yeah. I'll take that.
I guess the thing for the Highlanders is, if the Drua beat the Rebels, then the Highlanders can't go up or down. They'll stay in, 6th position. So does that, Surly, I guess, does it take a wee bit of the, intensity out of that game for the Highlanders? Do they, could we, I don't know if it's allowed, could we see wholesale changes before the game if indeed nothing can happen, or they just roll on out there and they play it just like another game?
I think they just roll on out there. Like, these two teams are too proud for that. Regardless, it's still a New Zealand derby. Like, these guys are out there and they want to play and they want to win. So there's still pride on the line. Plus, to them, knocking off the Canes right before finals starts. What a massive confidence builder and a huge scalp. And it shows that they can go with the best teams in the comp. They're not just bullies of teams below them. So now they'll be throwing everything at it. The problem for me, though, is the Canes will be doing the same because they want to lock in a home semi-final. So I think it's almost too hard for them just because the Canes have something to play for, where in an ideal world, they would have been locked in, cemented already, rest a couple bodies. You get a hungry Landers team looking to pull off the upset. But I think the Canes have too much to lose here as well.
Yeah. Well, I think, yes, as you say, they'd like a nice dress rehearsal at the Tinny House before they head into the playoffs. So, yeah, Canes, I think, a big, I think they will be too strong in the end, regardless of the situation the Highlanders find themselves in.
Yeah.
The last game we'll look at, Blues Chiefs. Blues, $1.35. Chiefs, $3.20. The Blues are 6.5 point favourites. The game total set at 53.5. Is this because the Chiefs are basically locked into fourth place, Goldie, that the bookies have them so long, or is it because the Blues are fair to give? They are they're a number one spot at the moment, and they've looked, I guess, if not the best team in the top two for pretty much the whole season.
Yeah, they've been legit, right? They've been legit side, and when they're at full strength, which it looks as though they're going to be back to full strength. They add those two players we talked about, and Clark and Papali'i back into the frame. So evidence, they've been great at home. You talk about momentum. The Hurricanes are trying to get it, keep that, put pressure on. The Blues are very much in a situation as well that they'll need to think about, well, we want to secure top spot. And the Chiefs, I think, they had really, I wouldn't say a lackluster month, but sort of because they didn't have the big derbies, they sort of went off the radar before last weekend. Everyone was it was just quiet time for them. It was just beating teams they should beat. And then all of a sudden, and they made hard work of a couple of those, but they got the job done. And so a team that we thought, who I thought were a real contender, haven't looked like it probably until last weekend. They showed some signs. I think they'll want to know they're there. I think they'll want to know that we actually are playing well. And to do that, you come up State High 1 and you get it. You go and compete against the Blues. So I don't think this is probably fair. The 320 is a ridiculous amount of money, really, for what this Chiefs team have got in terms of quality. It really is. I think that is too high. Does it mean I'm going to back them? I think if you're a Chiefs fan, if you're a Chiefs fan and you back this team, you take that, right? You take that and go, you know what? I'm going to get on that. By the same token, if you're a Blues fan, you go, well, we've been in some big games this year and we've fronted up and done well. We might not have got it done last weekend, but we're going home. Crowds have been great at home. We've been really good at home. I'd expect them to come out and I think there's one area is that they'll want to show up front once again, 1 through 5. And that, if I was going to say, it was really, really nice to see Samasoni Tokiaho play well last weekend, and the way that he played. I really enjoyed the work that he did. I think the Chiefs need that desperately, but it's the tight 5 for me of the Chiefs that needs to step up against the Blues because that's an area I think other teams will target for the Chiefs. So if they can stand up tight 5, because the rockstar backline, it really is, but the tight 5 needs to step up. That's the one area I would say at the moment the Chiefs might have would be concerned against the Blues.
Shirley, do the Chiefs find themselves in a similar scenario to the Highlanders where it'd be great to knock off one of the big dogs as you head into the playoffs? And I think Jeff mentioned that the Chiefs haven't really had a number of big games over the last 4 or 5 weeks outside of that one against the Canes last weekend. So is this a chance for them to head into the playoffs with a big scalp under their, a scalp in terms of the Blues, and giving themselves a whole heap of confidence as they do head into the playoffs?
Yeah, absolutely. I had them preseason winning the competition, and I think the Chiefs themselves will be pretty disappointed. Apart from beating the Crusaders earlier on in the season, they've then gone on to lose to the Crusaders, lose to the Canes. They need to beat one of these fellow Kiwi sides, these top sides, and really show that they're a genuine competition threat, because at the moment, they look like a team that has all the potential on paper, but in these big games, they're losing those small moments that cost them. So, confidence is key in finals time, and all it takes is one big win to really ignite you. They'll be stinging off the back of last week too. So, yeah, they've still got plenty to play for. They might be locked into that top four, but that they will want to win to just really ignite and cement that they can go with these top sides. Because when you look at it overall, I expected them to be in 1 or 2 at this stage of the competition in the preseason. They're sitting in 4th. They're probably disappointed with that, and they haven't had that 80-minute performance where you're just like, wow, these guys are unbeatable.
Righty-ho. Back to the script, just checking. Yes, we've covered that. Right. It's betting time. It's punting time on the pick and go. I guess we'll stick with you, Shirley. We look back to last week, and as Pity would say, it was for all of us, no collects whatsoever. So it's time for us to, I guess, head into the playoffs with a wee bit of confidence and hopefully pick up a win or two this weekend. Shirley, tell the punters where you'll be placing your $100 of virtual money this weekend.
Yeah, so this weekend I've gone all out on one bet, and it's a multi. I've gone the Crusaders over 5.5 total tries against Moana. I think they'll score plenty and put on a strong performance. And then I've gone the Blues 1 to 12. I've multied that up to get $4.34, and I'm chucking it all on that. I was tempted by that try bet, either team to win by under 7.5, because I think that game's going to be really tight again. But I'm going to back the Blues at home back to full strength to be too good. So I like those odds there, $4.34. No doubt Jeff's got the Highlanders or someone in there, but I was hoping that this was quite safe. So let's see.
Well, let's head to Jeff. He hasn't had a pump with us so far this season. So last week
the regular, I've had every week I've got punts going. not with you, particularly this group, but at home I have. What are you on about? That's every week, horses, living gallops, trots, basketball. There's multis every week going down.
And he hasn't lost one. He hasn't lost one. He's undefeated.
Sounds like we're going to get a cross-code multi from Jeff here. He's going to have the Celtics to win the NBA.
Yeah, you're 100% right. I'm all over that, baby. Don't you worry about that. Look, I think it's funny you've gone. I've just gone an all-out multi as well. I mean, but I've gone a 4-legger. I've gone a little bit wide, but I've gone on some favourites. I think the Brumbies are going to beat the Force. Mm-hmm. You know, I think that's, to me, I think they're the better team in Australia, the best team in Australia. They'll want same thing. They'll want momentum. You know, even though they're away from home, I think they'll beat the Force. Even though the Force has got a lot to play for, everything to play for, I think the Brumbies will get that done. I think the Brumbies will beat the Chiefs. And just straight head to head, I've got the Reds beating the Waratahs because the Waratahs are woeful. They are woeful. They were poor at Go Media Stadium last weekend. They've been poor all season. The 2 games they managed to do were against the Crusaders. How they did that, I have no idea. Which is remarkable, but they've sacked their coach. Feel for Darren Coleman. His team, one of their best players is heading off the rugby league. They're in disarray. So I've got them losing to the Reds, and I've got the Crusaders 13+. You know, so Moldy's up about 340, 343 around there. So just sort of trying to triple my money, to get through the weekend, but. Keeping it on the favourites and a dominant performance from the Crusaders. Like you say, you piqued my interest with the Highlanders, but I just think it's a really big ask for them against the Hurricanes team, who will want to play really, really well. And yep, 17.5. But the thing about the Hurricanes, they're like a good side. If you get behind against good sides and you start to chase rugby, you give up points. You know, it's a lot of teams that make mistakes. You start bleeding as you're trying to chase and you get behind. The Highlanders have done what they needed to do. They're in the playoffs, but now I don't think they can get a bit closer than that. So I'll keep it on the favoured side of things. That's my multi.
Beautiful. I'm not too dissimilar from both of you two there. I've got 2 bets that I'm going to have. One's a multi. I'm going to take the Reds to win at $1.25. I'm taking the Hurricanes 1-12 at $3.50. I'm taking the Crusaders minus 26.5 at $1.90. I'm putting $50 on that at $8.31.
Oh.
And then, we're talking on Tuesday afternoon, so prior to teams being named.
Here
but
we go.
if he is playing, I'm
Here
going
we
to have
go.
I'm going to have $50 on Braden Yose to score a try in the Hurricanes Highlanders match down here at the Tinny House. So hopefully, I think he will be named in the side. And if he does play, he's been one of the most impressive players throughout the competition. I think so. Keen to jump on. I think he'll be scaring that try line on Saturday afternoon.
Does he make the All Blacks?
Well, that's crikey, Jeff. We're going off on another tangent here. Once again, I guess it depends on which way Scott Robertson wants to go and the sort of the makeup of the loose forward trio as a whole. I'd have him in there. I think he's done enough. I think he covers number 8 and number 6.
Can play 6. But I'm sure he can play 6. I've never seen him play 6. And he can play 6 because I just want him in the team. That's the hardest thing about when you start talking about it, because clearly you'll be going Ardis Sevilla and Hoskins Satutu, right? Are you premier number 8s? So you go, how do I get him in the team? I've got to get him over to 6. And so that's at the moment, it's a tough conversation, right?
Yes.
Because there's nothing proven at the next level. But you've got a Finau, assuming he's going to be fit, right? Blackadder's played a game now. What are our other options at 6? I don't think they go back to Akiti Ioane. Dalton Papali'i can play there. Peter Lakai, I'm massive on that kid. I think he could play 6 as well. He is. Yeah. He's got a massive future, And then we've got Sam Cane just sitting, waiting to see do you want me? A guy who pretty much he's been a very, very good All Black for a long, long time. And he's like Beauden Barrett. He doesn't need time in the saddle. You put a mouth guard in and away you go, and he'll put it on the line. I'd love to see Braden Yose in there. I just don't know how we get him in. I just don't know who you leave out,
But it's a good problem for Razor to have as well. When you're thinking it's not who do I put in, it's who do I leave out. But I do, if the Poms do send a proper team over, it'll be a great test for any of those sort of, if there are any bolters or any debutants that Scotty decides to select, it'll be a great test for them against a very, very good forward pack, but here at home. So I'd like to think that he'll have if not a bolter, maybe 1 or 2 players who haven't worn the black jersey yet. And we get to see them have a wee bit of a go. But you're right, there are a lot of players that are coming back, getting fit again, getting healthy again. So it'll be very, very interesting to see what sort of mix Scotty decides to go with.
And certainly we don't know how he's going to play either. Like they've had a formula down in Christchurch for the Crusaders with the cattle that they've had, which has been very dominant at Super Rugby level. All of that combined, that culture, that group of players, world-class players in really critical positions. One's just gone on and won another title in Japan, probably the most influential first 5 in Super Rugby. Yeah. You think about all those things, but he hasn't got that at his disposal. There's no Sam Whitelock. There's no Brodie Retallick. There's no, there's a lot of guys. There's no Richie Mwanga. Okay. Can you play? Is he going to play that way? That's as much as I'm fascinated as anything. How's he going to play the game? Because that'll determine, I think, a lot of his selections. And I can't wait for a month's time when we see that first All Black squad. There's going to be some sort of there'll be some sort of debate before that. And then you go, gosh, we'll have a hell of a good second team. Whoever that's going to be some guys that miss out that are really, really good, played really well.
Probables versus possibles. Get it going.
Certainly, regardless of who he picks, there are going to be players who miss out, and people are going to go, how did he miss out? Or why didn't he select this guy? When you can make a case on both sides for players who are selected and players who miss out.
Do you know what they've done in the past? 32 became 34, became 36, became 39, and then all of a sudden New Zealand Rugby's going, I can't afford all these people.
Yeah.
What are you doing? $7,500 a week for every player? What do you want here? You know?
How many apprentices are you allowed? What's the go? Can Cullen Grace, Braden Yorsey, all these guys, Sam Kane?
Throwing Cullen Grace in the mix all of a sudden. Okay.
Yes.
Well, he's a Crusader, isn't he? And Razor's shown faith in him and identified him pretty early. So maybe he's the teacher's pet. He's the coach's pet. He gets in. You never know.
Wow, that's a big call. I'm going to remember you said that.
Yeah.
Well, we all know who Laurie Mains's pet was back in the day. So don't say anything, Jeff.
Don't say it out loud? Okay. That wasn't me, by the way. It wasn't me. Anyway, so there they're going, Hey?
Oh, fair income. We've got the tipping comp as well, and if we have a look, number one spot at the moment, Sam M. Howie. He's up top, leads by 1.5 points from Lysa. And in third place, Marge. So only one more week to go for the tipping comp, and then we'll be handing out some bonus cash to some lucky punters. I'm just having a look. Where's our good friend? Surly, is he still in the top 20? Oh, he's in 17th.
Yeah, I'm in 17th. I'm like the Fijian drawer. I'm right on the edge. I'm a title contender, but I could also bow out this week. You never know.
Right.
Groggy, next season we better invite Jeff into the tipping comp because very much like to see how he goes up against some of New Zealand's best.
No, I mean, honestly, it's one of the worst things because when you're on TV, you sit there, and I'm quite often hosting before the game, and it's always like sometimes, well, I'll have to go to the team that no one else is going, just for interest's sake, you know.
Yeah.
I picked one team I knew had no show of winning, but just for interest's sake, I said they'd win 1-12, and they got a hiding by 40 points.
There we go.
And you sit there and go, yeah, but it's more fun if we do that. You know, it's more fun if we someone has to take the underdog at some point. You know. And I've copped it all year because I kept picking the Crusaders and then they kept losing. So I might have. So how many? So you, Surly, have you been right on the Crusaders most of the year?
I've been that. To be fair, if I'd been on the Crusaders against the Chiefs and the Blues, I'd probably be sitting top now because I went both the Blues and the Chiefs for those games. But apart from that, I've managed to pick their wins from there. But I've been backing them majority of games, to be fair. So those losses,
like most other people have, right?
Yeah, so those losses that they've probably come to regret now, like that Tars game, like the Force game, like the Brumbies game, have really hurt me too. So, yeah, not happy.
Righty-ho. Promotions this week as well. Don't forget the Oval Ball Mega Multi and, of course, the Super Rugby 3 or more leg same game multi bonus cashback. Just place a 3 or more leg same game multi on any New Zealand team Super Rugby game, and if one leg fails, you can get up to $50 back in bonus cash, one per game. Just head to the TRB website, check out all the T's and C's. Surly, the shield up for grabs this week, didn't you mention? Was it Kumu?
Yeah, Kumu and then a court session. So fingers crossed we beat Kumu and retain the shield. Otherwise, the court session could well be cancelled. We'll see.
See, that's when the Highlanders had Highlanders and Otago had their best court sessions when we lost.
Yeah,
because we just decided it was better to commiserate.
Yeah,
together.
Team bonding, right?
Team bonding. You know, we'll be better for this if we're hung over together tomorrow. Yeah, that would be amazing. You know,
I don't think a team's ever lost off the back of a court session, surely, because you're so bonded. You trust your mate more. It just depends how soon the court session finishes. If it drags over to the Monday, Tuesday, then you're in a world of trouble.
Oh, mate, I can only barely remember those days. Well, I think we've done well for a podcast that started at 9 a.m. this morning.
Yeah, we're just
get it done by 2:30 on Tuesday afternoon.
Just a few technical difficulties there, Goldie.
Bloody updates. Those updates.
And what about Westlake boys? They going round this weekend?
The second 15. Actually, my boys are away. They've got a interschool. Tomorrow they're playing down in Tauranga, actually. They've got basketball down there. They play a bit of basketball as well. But the second 15 out this weekend, I'm just trying to think. I've got to go to training this afternoon. No, we have, actually. We're playing the third 15. Tell you what, there'll be some blood on the ground there. The second 15.
Talk about probables, possibles. There we go.
You're 100% right. The guys who missed out on the second 15. Oh, They'll be angry. So no, we'll in saying that, it'll be good. School's obviously had a big couple of years. Making the top four, making the final, going to a world invitational competition. They're proud of their rugby right now, and it's nice to be a part of it. But back coaching my son, so that's always a challenge. I know how hard how much I listened as a kid. I think he's very much like me.
Here we go. We've got a Kevy Walters, Billy Walters thing going on here. I'm laughing this out of this. Thanks to Goldie for joining us this week. Hopefully we can steal him and get him back for another week during maybe the play, or maybe before the first All Black test of the season, or maybe just after the All Black squad's name, we can get Jeff back and just get his take on where Scotty's got it wrong and where he's got it right.
I'll block out a whole day for next time.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah. No, we'll have all the software updates will be done by then. Don't worry about it, Goldie. We'll be
You'll
fine.
find one. You'll find one, Paulie. You'll find one.
I don't know why other companies don't employ me to find out glitches in their software, because if there's one, I'll find it. Don't worry about it. Thanks to Shirley. Good luck to the Northcote boys and their big game this weekend, and definitely good luck to them in the court session. And thanks to you guys for listening once again to the Pick and Go. And if you're going to have a punt, make sure you bet responsibly. And we'll see you back here next week as we look at the makeup of the Super Rugby playoffs.